this edition of FedGov Today with Francis Rose, day 3 of the shutdown, and there is at least one area where federal employees can relieve their minds. You'll learn more about that in a moment. First, though, a note that you'll get guidance and advice on managing in the federal government through the shutdown on the FedGov Today podcast every day, starting on Monday. Leaders who have dealt with past shutdowns and past restarts will help you prepare for what's ahead while the government's closed and when it reopens. To make sure you don't miss any of those shows, follow the FedGov Today podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your shows. And you can listen on demand anytime at fedgovtoday.com. The Thrift Savings Plan's website says the TSP will continue its normal daily operations during a lapse in appropriations. You do not need to take any action. James Kaplan is Director of External Affairs at the Federal Retirement Thrift Investment Board. It's good to talk to you again, my friend. The best news I think that anybody has that works for the federal government right now is that at least in that aspect of their lives, in their retirement planning, the shutdown doesn't mean they have to do anything. There's no action is needed by participants because of the shutdown. Jim, welcome.
Thank you, Francis. That's right. So the TSP continues to operate on a regular status. We are not funded with annually appropriated funds, so we can continue to operate. And we've recognized over the years that when the government faces the lapse in appropriations, that we know that every agency's payroll will be impacted. And so we automatically move our participants into who have a loan into a standby situation. We recognize that you're not default if your paycheck isn't processed and you can't process your loan. And then it'll catch up when your paychecks resume as regularly scheduled. So a couple years back, we set it up so that everybody doesn't have to call in and let us know that they've been furloughed. We get that information directly from the agency and are able then to put those aside. Of course, if you've already retired or separated, you need to continue to make any payments on your loans as required. If they're not part of the payroll system.
That's different than the last shutdown. In the last shutdown, I seem to remember that folks had to go into their My TSP accounts and make that designation manually. Am I recalling that correctly?
Yeah, I believe so. It's been in the last few years. So since the last one was back in really 2018, and we made these changes in the 2020s, that's the case. But yeah, we're always looking for how can we be more efficient and better support our participants. And this is just one change we've made in recent years to make it easier, especially during challenging times.
I do recall that the TSP's helplines got lots of calls and lots of inquiries from folks wondering about any number of different things that would happen as a result of the shutdown. And one of the things that people tried to make sure folks understood then was this what you just said. We're still going to be open. We don't work on an appropriation, so we don't have to worry about that, and so on and so forth. Do you have a sense, or when do you think you might have a sense, of the kinds of questions that people will ask that then you'll want to be able to turn around and either address on the website or talk to folks like me about, that kind of thing? Is that something that you're tracking right now, Jim?
It is. So the second that we know that there's been a lapse of appropriations, or what's called a government shutdown, we put information up on our webpage, tsp.gov, about what happens and the actions that are required. We also change in our call center. So when you dial in and say, I'm calling about a loan, it brings you over and explains the situation of a loan. It tells you that we're open and updates that information. And we have our call center ready to take questions, and we're ready to surge if there are more people. This year, it happens to coincide with when the fork in the road came to its completion. So we anticipate some higher call volumes just as people begin their regular retirement, regardless of the status of government. And so we're ready for an increased set of calls. We'll see what those calls are about. We're always keeping track of what our participants are calling about.
Did you have to plus up at all anticipating the fork in the road folks starting to have more questions or wanting to learn more about their TSPs and talk to an actual human?
Well, we don't. And the good thing is 3 years ago, when we moved to our managed service contract, we don't have the staff for the phone bank. It's the folks that manage our records for us, our record keeping system. And so they monitor what's necessary, and they have the ability to surge additional personnel if it's needed, or to drop down if it's not needed. And that doesn't impact the cost to our participants or the fees or our budget. They just have certain requirements they have to meet on service and availability. As long as they're meeting those, we're on target. And we've been meeting those with over 90% efficiency for more than a year now. So we're happy with that response.
Is that the main number that you'll track to make sure that the call centers are staying on point and giving people the information they want, how quick calls get answered, and how little time people are on hold?
That's correct. That's our primary metric. One of the many that we have with our record keeping contract of how quickly do they answer, how many people call in, how quickly an issue is resolved, how often it has to be elevated. One thing that we've talked about in the past is we now have the way to keep track so that if somebody calls in numerous times with the same problem, it immediately gets elevated to a higher level help desk and to a supervisor to assist them. And we've seen a real reduction in the number of follow-on calls as a result, because those who have the most challenging cases get addressed by those who are best able to help them.
You have told me recently a number of times about the ability for folks to convert to Roth plans within the TSP that's coming, that availability is coming. I note that people seem to like that option because you've got more money under management in Roth plans than you ever have before.
Well, sure. When determining whether you want to put your retirement funds into a traditional TSP account or a Roth account, you have to figure out, the tax impact that's likely for you. And especially earlier in your career, when you're paying a lower tax rate, it may make sense to pay that tax when it goes into the account, which is a Roth account. And as we have more young folks joining in, more of them are choosing in their payroll plan to at least put some of their fund into a Roth account and pay the taxes up front. Whereas later in your career, it may not make as much sense to pay those taxes early and avoid, because you want the advantage of the tax deferral of paying the taxes now, and you'll see how the fund grows and pay with it. So what we have seen is that people continue to choose to have some or all of their funds go into a Roth account. The overall total is growing. The percentage of our participants who are using a Roth account is growing. And so having that additional choice is a good opportunity for those who determine it's best for them. But as always, they need to check with their tax advisor and decide which of many options is right for them. And our goal is to provide them with those options.
It's always great to catch up and find out what is happening. I'm glad you're still there as the shutdown progresses, and I appreciate you keeping us updated, Jim. Thanks very much.
We're always here for them and for you. Thanks, Francis.
You can read more about the TSP on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. With the shutdown in progress now, 4 former government leaders will join me on the next FedGov Today TV. They'll tell you what to expect in the coming weeks as you manage and lead through the shutdown and eventually prepare to restart. You can watch the debut on ABC7 in Washington and on the FedGov Today YouTube channel at 10:30 Sunday morning. If you missed the debut, you can watch anytime at fedgovtoday.com and on YouTube. The FedGov Today podcast returns Monday to help you navigate the shutdown with special shows every day until the shutdown ends. To make sure you don't miss them, follow the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your shows. And, of course, you can always listen on demand at fedgovtoday.com. I'm Francis Rose. Talk to you Monday. Thanks for listening.